Welcome to Crunch Time, a program dedicated to helping you survive the crunch times in your life, whether they are caused by accidents, natural disasters, poverty, economic recession, depression, or all-out economic collapse, or whether they are caused by your realization that today's food supply is being contaminated by artificial fertilizers, pesticides, and genetically modified organisms, and over-processing of crops into what can hardly be called food. We want to help you through the crunch times in your future by teaching you what we have learned about organic gardening, food storage, and food preparation. We'll bring you into our kitchen and into our garden and share with you what we have learned, hopefully before your crunch times arrive. Now here is Chef Francois. Welcome back to Crunch Time, where Jesus is King and all our desires are to serve Him. Today, once again, as we did last week, we're going to go to the garden and we're going to continue doing our spring planting, cultivating, composting, and work in the garden.
Alright, today is the 28th day of March, and last night and the night before especially, we had a very hard frost, and these tomato plants got frozen stiff and then died. So no good. Cactus is still doing okay, even though it's soaking wet there. Rutabagas are doing great. Potatoes down underneath are starting to come through in a few spots. No, I don't even see them here. But anyway, rutabagas, kale, and spinach in the back need to be eaten. Here's some potatoes right here. They got frozen. They're in too quick. But they'll come back, I think. Asparagus pet, blueberries along the fence, strawberries I just uncovered again this morning. Put all the straw on the walking path so the weeds don't grow. Strawberries are growing pretty good. Spinach, kale, parsnips planted, but they won't come up for at least 3 more weeks. Over there we've got some radishes coming up. Over here I planted some carrots. In here I planted some cabbage, and in that row over here I planted leeks and onions. May or may not come up. Here I planted fennel, that's not up yet. Here we have 2 rows of peas, they're coming up nicely. Over here I've got 5 rows of kohlrabi, and they're coming up nicely, and a whole bunch of them fell right down in there. So I can use those to transplant into areas like that where there's a space. And over here we've got beets, red beets, and I may even have red beets on this first one, I'm not sure. I don't remember. But over here we have snap peas up against the fence, and I'll be putting another fence up over there between the peas. Over here we have the radishes, they're coming up nicely. Here we have either kohlrabi or rutabagas that I just planted just because I had something. And here we have lettuce, and it's coming up. Looks like the frost didn't kill it. The only thing the frost has killed that I can tell for sure is the tomatoes, which shouldn't have been in anyway. There's a parsnip coming up there, another parsnip over there that are last year's. may or may not leave them in so I can get some seeds. And this whole section from there back I'm going to save for tomatoes. And this whole section in here I'm going to be planting some other stuff that I've got, but I haven't figured out how I'm going to plant it in there yet. Shao just turned in that section. He'd already done this section. Our compost pile is getting down. That compost pile is getting about half full. Could put some more leaves on top of it right now, I guess. Might just do that while I'm here. Taking the bags that I had here and figured out which ones had leaves in them and which ones had pine cones. Put the leaves on the compost pile. Put the pine cones way over there. And I'm going to put some nitrogen on the compost pile. Help digest that a little better. It'll compost a lot quicker. I'm going to put a little more on this one too. And then when it rains today, we'll get plenty of water in there and it'll digest nicely. A little bit more water down here to wet these leaves down a little. That'll compost right down nicely. So we've cleaned up all the bags over here and we only got a few left over there. We'll be all summer probably cutting those down unless this gets compacted enough, quick enough that I can move it over to one of those spots. But we got good compost still in this short pile over here. Shao's been yanking some off of them to do that section. This one here is going to take a while yet before it's done. And that one, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. These garbage bags that our leaves came in can be used for mulch like I have over the strawberries right now. Just cut the sides, unfold it, and we'll have about 8-foot long stretch. I'm going to save these bags. I may use them for bags, so I'm not going to cut them yet. Shovel the air out. Put them right in our box inside. Okay, today is March 30th. And still not warm enough to plant some of these things outside, so I'm going to be planting in these peat pellets that I have already spaced out and watered and expanded in a cookie package that cookies like this came in. They were stacked up in rows like that, we're using this as a little greenhouse, and I like the way that it doesn't close completely unless I try to, because it'll help give it some air. So I'm going to be marking where I'm going to plant things, and I'm going to be planting, not going to be planting any peanuts, but there's some grapes. There's two different kinds of grapes. I don't know where the other one is. There's some jujubes, which are Chinese dates. There's white watermelon, winter watermelon, Siberian tomatoes, giant Chinese cabbage or Napa. This is some kind of melon. I think it was the shaped melon that's yellow. Here's the other grapes. And then there's some giant beets and giant yellow beets, and the world's largest blackberries. I'm going to be planting maybe 5 or 6 of those. So I'm going to lay out how I'm going to plant them, and then I'll be planting them, watering them again, and I'll close that up a little bit and put them in the sun in my daughter's room. Well, here's a bunch of the seeds that I planted, and I'm going to show you the map. Alright, here's the map of all the things that we planted in these pods, or peat pellets. We've got squash, cucumbers, peppers, melons, grapes, blueberries or blackberries, Russian olive, whole bunch of different kinds of stuff, beets, giant Napa, and we'll be watching these as they sprout. Here's our other plants that are doing pretty well. A couple peppers and a bunch of tomatoes that we've already started. Alright, it is April 2nd, and Shao has transplanted asparagus into rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows in this area right here. You can see the stalk sticking up. Alright, down in the basement in my germination station, which is a cookie container and a donut container, where I've put in some pods with some seeds. And over here we've got 1, 2, 3 missing, which is the ones that I put upstairs by the window. And over here we've got some giant beets started and some giant Napa started. And the rest of them, they haven't poked their head up yet, but if I pick them up and look underneath on some of them, I can see roots like that one. You can see the roots sticking out, so you know that that carnival squash is going to be poking up soon. And let me see, we've got a whole bunch of stuff in here that I'd really like to see grow, especially the Russian olive, the blackberries. Let me see, the small watermelon, large watermelon, I know is starting to poke through the bottom. See, that there is the sugar baby watermelon. This is poking through right there. You can see that is a big watermelon. That one's not poking through yet. Most of them are not poking through yet. I had them maybe too wet to start with. Oh, that one's poking through. That's the third one up. That's regular watermelon. And this one here This regular watermelon. This should be the giant blackberry, but it's not doing anything yet. That watermelon's not doing anything. Anyway, that's what we got. If I keep the top down, it gets warmer, but it needed to dry out some, so I had to uncover it. Now I think it's dry enough I can cover them back up, and they should grow better. Now those giant beets I could bring upstairs and put into my other pots if I had some soil to put them into. Today is the 6th of April, and our little seedlings are growing pretty well. Over here we have Arctic tomatoes, subarctic. Over here we have chocolate cherry tomatoes. Over here, at least these three plants, is Mr. Stripey tomatoes. But over here I have, and over here I've got carnival squash there and there. And over here I've got maritime cucumber, and we've got peppers, Aconcagua peppers here, here, and here. And here we've got sugar lump tomatoes, 1, 2, 3, 4 plants. And here we have tiny Tim tomatoes, 2 plants there, 2 plants, at least 3 here. And it looks like maybe 1 or 2 good ones over there, right there. So we've got some decent plants. The onions, the giant onions, they just don't seem to grow, whether I keep the ground wet or whether I keep it dry. They just don't seem to grow very well. So I'm not concerned about those. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 supposedly growing, but who knows. Alright, so we'll go down in the basement and show you the rest of the pods that these came from and see what's growing down there. Alright, I've taken this little donut container here and I've added some peat pellets and I've sprinkled some water on them, and they're going to start expanding here shortly, and I'm going to plant some seeds just like I did on these over here. I'm going to put this down, open this up. There we go. And I'm going to have to turn these. Turn it on so you can see them. I've planted a whole bunch of seeds in there. Here's the map for what I planted. And got them in the little greenhouse made out of a donut holder or cookie holder. They are nice and warm because they're on a heating tray. And they're going to stay nice and moist because I've got them covered. And these over here are just starting to fluff up right now. I'm going to put a little bit more water in there. Tip that up so the water will go to that end. Maybe put something under this end so it won't fall down. And let them soak up. Alright, today is the 9th day of April. And down in our little germination stations here, you can see that we've got basil over here that I'm going to probably leave down here for a while. And then mouse melon right here, which I'm probably going to bring upstairs right now. lemon cucumber that hasn't germinated, and I've taken a bunch of this stuff out already. Giant Napa right here. Right behind it, where there's 3 missing, was the giant beets I just brought upstairs. I have a sweet pepper right here. We have a banana melon right there. We have a watermelon that broke its leaves off trying to pull out of the dirt. Probably because I had it upside down. All the grapes, blackberries, winter melons, honey melon, jubilee or jujube, Chinese dates, and some of the other stuff. Carnival squash, I did get one to start, but I got some more over here that aren't started. Little small watermelons, I got some started upstairs. Sweet baby watermelon, sugar baby watermelon, that's not doing anything. So that's what we got up here, and I'll go upstairs and show you where we put them all so they can get more sun, because down here we've got heat from the heating pad. We don't have any sun. We've got just this light that's over top of it. Alright, up by the only window in our house that faces the south, I have got my tomatoes growing, some peppers. We've got some cucumbers here. We've got large watermelon here and there. And we've got honey watermelon here. We've got large watermelon right there. No, this is carnival squash, and so is this. And we've got a bunch of things growing. Tomatoes are growing pretty good. Some of them are crappy. Arctic tomatoes are coming up really good. And over here we've got tiger melon. And these little things over here. Giant beets on the left. Giant Napa. Looks like it's fallen over. Lemon cucumber and mouse melon cucumbers. They're all barely hanging on, I believe. But that's what we got. Today is the 9th of April. And by middle of May or so, I'll be planting these outside. And hopefully before then, before they outgrow their little spot here. Well, it is the 9th of April, and we have planted a lot of things weeks ago, and not much of it is coming. We planted the strawberries way back last October. They are growing well, even in the cold weather that we've had throughout the month of March and the first part of April. We planted parsnips in amongst the kale. The kale is growing fine. The spinach is growing fine. But the parsnips, of course, they take a month to come up. And I don't see anything coming up here, and I don't expect to see anything coming up. Though I did expect to see carrots coming up here. Nothing has come up. And also over here, onions and leeks, I see nothing. Absolutely nothing. Probably because it's been too cold. All these rutabagas made it through the winter. They're still growing. We're still harvesting them. The fennel that I put here, nothing is coming up. The peas, they are coming up. They're doing good. And the kohlrabi little plants like that, same as those. There are a few scattered in there that came up nicely, and when you water them you can see the purple ones. They're spaced out quite a bit, and they are coming up. Over here we have beets, and you can see the beet plants are surviving. I wouldn't say they're coming up, but they did germinate, they did survive. And snap peas up against the fence over there, they're kinda surviving. Over here we have radishes, and finally we're getting more than just the seed leaves. The first two leaves are heart-shaped, and we're finally starting to get the second leaves on those radishes. So those are doing okay. Over here we have lettuce, a number of different kinds of lettuce. Yes, they came up. But considering that it's been 3 weeks or so, they're not doing much yet. Of course, our garlic, which we planted way back last October, they're doing just fine, mainly because they're up against the fence over here, plus I mulched them with some leaves. The potatoes that I put in here, I have got a good mind to dig down in there with my fingers and see if maybe they froze, because I didn't make them very deep. They're still live. I guess when it gets warm they'll come up. And so strawberries are starting to fluff out nicely. This spring they were in solid ice, and they were mostly one set of leaves on each plant. Now we've got at least 3 or 4 or 5, and they're doing good. It was supposed to rain today, and I was expecting to not have to come over and water, but since it hasn't, my tank is low even after putting water in it. The mulch pile needs water, and everything here needs water, so I'm going to probably water before I go home. These rutabagas, which I covered over with bags of leaves, they're doing really well. And of course the kale and spinach along the fence is good. Let's see if this compost pile is at least getting hot inside. No, it's not. It needs water. In the last minute of our show, I'd like to tell you about the real reason for this show. Jesus Christ, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Without Jesus as my Savior, I would not be confident entering into these trying times that lay ahead. If Jesus is not your Lord and Savior, I suggest you send me an email at crunchtime@roadrunner.com and ask me how you can join the God who loves you, His Son Jesus Christ, and His disciples in everlasting life. For now, I say to you, God bless and keep you and yours. I'll see you next week on Crunch Time with Chef Francois.